everyone, welcome back to another episode of Against the Grain. I'm your host, Katie Goodwin. On today's episode, we are going to be covering the latest news in golf. As you know, a lot has been happening in the golf world, so we're just going to jump right into it, as you know we do here on this podcast. So the first thing is just kind of an update on the LIV Golf PGA Tour situation. In case you missed it last week, the PGA announced that they would be merging with LIV Golf and also the DP World Tour, which is just a European professional golf tour. And basically they would just do this to unify the men's professional game, and they're just tired of all these legal actions having to take place, all the back and forth that's happening. So they just kind of decided to unify and not necessarily move on, but just what would be better for their future. So we're kind of just going to dig into that deal and how it happened, what's going to happen with it. Again, no one really knows the details of what's going to happen in the future. It is still a lot up in the air, like what consequences the LIV players coming back will have to face. If the alliance is even going to happen, it still has to get approved by the policy board of the PGA Tour, so that all still has to happen. So there is a lot that has to go into place, but it is suspected that this alliance will happen by January of 2024 when the new PGA Tour season starts. So basically, to break down this deal a little bit, it kind of all happened because of a man named James Dunn, who goes by Jimmy Dunn, who is a broker on Wall Street. He serves on the policy board of the PGA Tour, and he's been on that policy board since January of 2023. But granted, Jay Monahan is kind of getting the credit in the news for this merger, but it really happened because of Dunn. And so a little bit about him, like I mentioned, he's a broker on Wall Street, and he is the president of Seminole Golf Club, which is one of the most elite golf clubs in the country. And he's also a member at Augusta National and Shinnecock Club Hills in New York. And also, just a little bit about him and kind of his role with this whole PGA thing, and why some people thought that he wouldn't go along with this alliance because of the public investment fund of Saudi Arabia and the country's history with that other country and their government. As the PGA Tour ran a segment on 9/11, a lot of people really questioned this merger and Dunn's involvement as well because of his firm and investment bank funds that he had in New York. He was actually qualifying for the mid-amateur when 9/11 occurred, so he wasn't at the office that day. So he kind of coins like "golf saved my life," and it ended up being that 66 people died in his firm that day. And so that's kind of why a lot of people were shocked that Dunn was the one behind this merger, as he was affected by 9/11 and, different countries' involvement in it. But so yeah, people are just very, very surprised. But continuing on to the merger and some of the details of it, PIF, the Public Investment Fund, it's rumored that they'll be investing $2 billion into this alliance. They've already invested billions into LIV Golf, so now they're just kind of going to transition into this alliance and investing in that. Apparently, Jay Monahan and others had been talking with them for 7 weeks before it was publicly announced that the merge would be happening. And it will also be up to Monahan if they keep this format that LIV has adopted. So LIV uses a team format. They have 12 teams of 4, totaling to 48 players, and they do 54 holes, shotgun start, no cut. And right now on the PGA Tour, almost all of the events are 72 holes, 4 days of 18 holes. and there is a cut after 2 days, after 36 holes, and then it's usually around the top 65 move on to the weekend. So, and there's no team events besides the Ryder Cup in the PGA Tour schedule, and the President's Cup as well. And so then you have players coming out and talking their opinions on this deal, some for it, some against it. And then you have Rory McIlroy in a press conference at the RBC Canadian Open coming out and saying he still hates LIV Golf, but he believes this is what they need and that Monahan was in the right. And again, everyone was shocked by what Rory was saying, as he was one of the very first ones to come out against LIV Golf when they started last year, early 2022, saying that those players shouldn't be allowed back on the PGA Tour, and he's going to take a stand with the tour and be an advocate for them and what they're doing. And so, again, people were like, well, Rory has said that he's very against LIV. Why is he now all of a sudden going with Monahan? So no one really knows why. But yeah, Rory's still very against LIV, but no one, again, like, this is all just very, very up in the air. No one really knows the details of everything. But as I mentioned before, the full PGA policy board still has to approve this alliance before it can move forward. And some of those players that serve on the policy board that are alongside Rory McIlroy are Patrick Cantlay, Webb Simpson, Charlie Hoffman, and Peter Malnati, along with the PGA of America president. And so it's going to be a matter of getting this deal by them as well. And also getting past the allegations that LIV made against the PGA of breaking antitrust laws. So there's still a lot that has to take place, and LIV kind of made comments against the PGA made comments against LIV that are going to be very, very hard to erase in order for them to create this alliance. And the Senate just recently, in the past couple of days, by Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal, has opened an investigation on this new LIV Golf PGA Tour merge, kind of citing the Saudi role in influencing the deal and risk in dealing with a foreign government. And Monahan has now come out saying that the tour had no choice in this merger, and saying they were left alone due to the country's, quote, geopolitical alliance with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, end quote. So it kind of just, again, makes you wonder what really sparked this deal. But I think that a lot more details will be coming out soon, and it'll just be very interesting to see what happens still. And again, the women are not being talked about at all, which is so crazy, because it's like they're just getting so forgotten about, and you have all this stuff happening, and LIV Golf has not even batted an eye at the women's professional league, which is still so crazy to me. And I think if the PGA does adopt a team format, they need to start incorporating women. They do have one tournament, the QBE Shootout, where about like 5 women maybe will play in it. That's just kind of like more a partner event rather than a team event. So I think kind of incorporating more of that, where the LPGA and PGA can combine, especially if they're getting more money now, they can use that to invest in the women's golf future as well. So moving on to more news, kind of with the LIV Golf, Phil Mickelson and his team, the High Flyers, have been sued for trademark infringement on their logo design. It's said that they stole the logo design from Cool Brand Supply, a skateboard lifestyle merchandise corporation from Argentina. So they've been established since 2003. The High Flyers underwent a logo reestablishment this past year for their 2023 season. So granted that Cool Brand Supply would have the original logo, but not much is really happening there. And then on the PGA Tour this past weekend, we had the RBC Canadian Open, and Nick Taylor became the first Canadian to win that event in 69 years. So that event is held up in Canada, and a Canadian hadn't won it in 69 years until this past Sunday, where he drained a 72-foot putt in a playoff against Tommy Fleetwood. That was on the fourth playoff hole, and it was the longest putt made of his PGA Tour career. And it was pouring down rain in this tournament at this time. People were in their ponchos. His fellow Canadian PGA players were out there supporting him. And when Taylor drained that putt, Adam Hadwin, another PGA Tour player from Canada, ran out on the green to celebrate, spraying him with champagne. And he was in jeans and a hoodie. And a security guard just absolutely tackled him, y'all. Like, literally flattened him because he didn't recognize who he was. And so, but he ended up being fine, luckily. But that was kind of like the moment that stole the show this past weekend. But congratulations to Nick Taylor. And also congratulations to Ashley Buhai, who finished at 14 under to win the ShopRite LPGA Classic at Stockton Seaview Golf Club. This has been her fourth worldwide win in the past 10 months. And so then next week is the Meyer LPGA Classic at Blythefield Country Club in Belmont, Michigan. And so we'll just have to see who wins that one. And then on the Korn Ferry Tour, which if y'all don't know is kind of like the minor league of the PGA Tour. They help get people onto the PGA Tour, get them their cards. So on that tour, it was Adrian Dumont de Chassart who won in a playoff over Josh Teeter, and his final score was 21 under. And he played for Illinois, just graduated this year, and that was actually his professional debut. So congratulations to him in winning in his debut, just as Rose Zhang did in the past week. So we have some really good amateur turned professional stories coming out. And then again, big news this week is the US Open. I'm so excited for the US Open. I love when US Opens are on the West Coast. I think they're so much better because West Coast, best coast, but I think it always makes for a little more interesting time. So these are some of my picks, what I think is going to happen, just maybe my predictions on who could be holding up that trophy at the end of the week. So at number 5, I have Scottie Scheffler. So lately he hasn't been able to putt, but his ball striking is keeping him competitive. He had a chance to win at the Memorial, had his putting been better, but be on the lookout for his ball striking. And also the 2017 Walker Cup was held at Los Angeles Country Club, and that team for America was stacked. So that the Walker Cup is kind of like a Ryder Cup, but for amateur golfers, just the men's side. And so that team consisted of people like Scottie Scheffler, Colin Morikawa, a 2-time major champion, and Will Zalatoris, another esteemed PGA player who's unfortunately had to put his season on pause due to back injury. So be on the lookout for Scottie Scheffler if he gets his putter going. At number 4, I have Viktor Hovland. He has had a great season so far. He had a second place at the PGA Championship and then won at the Memorial Tournament in a playoff just the other weekend. But his short game will need to be on point. The US Opens always demand on point short game. You have to just be on your game with that. There is a little more area for forgiveness off the tee at Los Angeles Country Club, so you can miss the fairway and still be okay, but they do grow the rough out very, very long, so your short game needs to be on point in order to succeed. And Viktor Hovland's kind of known for not always having the best short game, not being the cleanest around the greens, so he will need to be good with that, and if he does want a shot at winning. At number 3, I have Xander Schauffele. he hasn't had the best year, I'd say. He's kind of struggled a little bit, but he is a local to Southern California, product of San Diego State University, so he is very familiar with SoCal golf courses and their layouts and how he'll manage those kinds of courses, as West Coast courses can be very different from Midwest courses and East Coast courses because of the types of grass, the climate, even something down to humidity. So he'll be more familiar with that, and he has also finished in the top 10 5 of his 6 US Open appearances last year, being that he was not in the top 10. But I think if he does come out playing well, he will have a very good shot. And at number 2, I have Max Homa. He has not had his best year, and he's actually never finished inside the top 10 in a major. I think the pressure could get to him, but if the pressure doesn't, he also has a very good shot. He has won at Riviera Country Club, which is only 6 miles east of Los Angeles Country Club. He's from Los Angeles. He played college at Cal, I want to say. And in 2011, he won the Pac-12 championships that were held at Los Angeles Country Club, shooting a course record of 61, beating people like John Rahm in that. And so I think Max Homa, if he does have the local support and just settles into it, and granted it is a big environment, I think he has a very, very good chance. He plays well on the West Coast, and if his game is in good shape, he could be holding that trophy. And I think the top person to look out for is Colin Morikawa, someone who is very, very consistent with his ball striking, with his accuracy. I did say that this course is going to be more forgivable, but if you can just keep it in the fairway on the greens the whole time, you're going to have a lot better shot than if you do miss the fairway or the greens. And when Colin Morikawa is on with his ball striking and accuracy, he is on. No one can beat him, but he has suffered a little bit from back injuries this season. He had to withdraw from a recent tournament due to it, but he said in a press conference today that he has no pain, so we're going to hope that that continues. And he was also a member of that winning 2017 Walker Cup team. He plays very, very well on the West Coast. He went to college at Cal, was very successful there. He also won at TPC Harding Park for the PGA Championship. That was in San Francisco. So he, again, is someone who knows this California climate, these California courses. I also think that there are 2, probably more, but 2 kind of dark horses in this. One being Jordan Spieth, and I'm not just saying that because he is my favorite player, but Jordan's kind of not had some of the best majors in the past years after coming out very hot in majors when he was 21, 22. Of course, having that star year in 2015 where he won the Masters and the US Open at Chambers Bay. But I think if Jordan does find his form, he again could be a threat to the title, as when he is in form, he's very, very hard to beat. And so it'll just be interesting. He's also had some injury problems with his wrist. He underwent surgery as of late. So it'll be interesting to see how he does perform. He is, again, someone who plays well on West Coast courses. I think that's something you're going to have to look out for, is just really people who play well on West Coast. You know, you have your people like Brooks Koepka, but almost all of his majors have been won in New York. So 2 very different places, very different courses. And also Ricky Fowler. People are saying that Ricky Fowler could contend for his first major title. He kind of had a couple fallout years, but he's been on the up the past year or so, I'd say. And it's really good to see Ricky coming back. Great guy. So hopefully Ricky could get it done this weekend. I'd love to see him win his very first major. But that is all I have in terms of golf news for this week. Join me next week for a conversation on my US Open experience, and we'll break down everything that happened and also other golf news if anything comes about. But until then, I'm your host, Katie Goodwin. Bye, everyone.